the people who are most suitable to be your clients are people who you're going to be introducing them to their true nature. Which means that if they don't have a whole lot of background, you need to be able to know how to talk about awakening in a way that makes sense to people. So I have a little piece about that here, and I thought perhaps this is a good time to drop it in just while we're in the midst of exploring. Does that make sense? Good with that? So let's turn to section 4, page 4. So when I do like a radio show or a teleseminar or something, and people ask me what is awakening, this is pretty much the explanation that I give them. Okay? So number one, everybody all the time is having experiences. Right? That means all the time everybody is hearing sounds, feeling body sensations, seeing things moving. We agree with that? Yeah? Give me a little help here.
Yes.
Yes.
So everybody who's listening to you is having experiences. However, although we're all having experiences, there is another layer on top of our sensory-based experience, which is real in this moment. There's another layer which you could call thinking. And that's where evaluation happens, that's where judgment happens, that's where fear happens, that's where regret happens, that's where plans happen. You with me? That all happens in thinking. Now, our capacity to think, right? The fact that we are able to create experience that's not actually physically happening to us, is both a great blessing and also a curse. Right? Now, we don't know for sure, but as far as we know, other species don't appear to have this capacity going on. Right? So we don't know for sure, but for example, we have a cat who lives at home in our house, and we have no evidence to suggest that our cat can access either past or future or make plans or anything else. Right? In fact, many other animals seem to have such short-term memory that they will recover from a bereavement in a matter of a day or two. You understand? Like if you have two cats and one of the cats dies, the other cat doesn't grieve nearly as long as a human being. And with small animals, it can be a day. Like we've had mice in our house, not in the basement. I mean in a cage. And one mouse died, so we take the mouse out, and if for one day the other mouse is a little disoriented, the next day it's like it's lived alone forever. So, anyway, what I'm saying is that this capacity that human beings have to remember and to plan, and therefore to evaluate and compare, as far as we know, it's unique to our species. Does that sound true? Yes. Okay. So it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because you can think the Empire State Building and then build it. You see, you can imagine things and then make them real. That's pretty cool. You can also remember things and therefore learn from your experience in a more logical way. However, it's also a curse if you can't switch it off. Right? See what I mean? If you're able to think when you need to and to stop thinking when you want to come back into what you were describing as where colours are bright and you feel this energy, if you're able to switch thinking on and off, it's great. If you don't know how to switch it off, which is true for almost everybody, it's become an addiction, then you're in trouble. So far, can you see that what I'm saying, almost anybody could understand this, right? So why are you in trouble? Because it means that the majority of your energy is going into the thinking process and only a little trickle of energy is left for what's actually here. You said, after doing these awakening practices, you notice things more. The colours are bright, you become more present. See? Okay, so what is the price we pay if we are not fully present, for example, at work? If you're doing a job, doesn't matter which job you think of, if you're not fully present at work, what price are you going to pay?
Like you're doing a physical job, you could lose a finger.
You could, that's true. If you're working on a construction site, then there's physical damage can happen from not being present. What about if you work on the stock exchange? What would be the consequence of not being present?
You make errors.
You could make errors, exactly. In fact, there's very high rate of error happens in most jobs simply because people are thinking about something else. So, what's the price we pay for not being fully present in relationship? in a marriage or in an intimate relationship.
Your partner could feel not heard or not listened to.
Right. You know what it's like to be with somebody who's not really there, who's thinking about something else when you're trying to connect. What's the price you pay for not being fully present as a parent?
They don't connect.
Right. And?
Children suffer, and you too.
Right. You miss out on the joy of parenting.
Yeah.
Your children turn into a project to manage instead of a mystery to explore. And what is the price you pay for not being fully present as a leader? Position of leader. What price would a leader pay? Someone in a position of leadership for not being fully present.
Non-cooperation.
You don't get the cooperation of the people that you're leading. Yeah.
Wouldn't provide the inspiration that a leader is intended to
Exactly. The other thing that can happen in leadership is if you're not fully present, is you start, you try and lead from fundamentalist, rigid, preset agenda instead of being open to what's happening. The best example of that was the George Bush's foreign policy, where you could see that he developed a kind of an idea going in, he had these stock phrases like "we do not stand down," and sort of like these cowboy phrases, and then went into a part of the world that he had no familiarity with their ways. But you could see, month after month, he just stayed with the same approach. He didn't back down and say, "Whoops, we made a mistake. Let's readjust this." You could see that was an example of rigid leadership, inflexible leadership. So that's the price you pay for not being present as a leader. Basically, when you're not present, there's usually the byproduct of not being present is you have a strong allegiance to dogma of some kind of fundamentalism. Okay. So now we've painted a picture. Do you think everybody could understand this picture? We're having sensory-based experience. All of us also get lost in thinking. We pay a big price for not being present. Right? You don't need to get mystical or spiritual to understand what we've said so far. Clear? Awakening simply means to break the trance of being lost in thinking just enough. You break the trance just enough to be able to glimpse who you really are and what reality is when you're not thinking. You only need a glimpse of awakening to break the trance. You see what I mean? Right? That's why we emphasize these tools of radical awakening. They're tools to just rip a little tear in the veil, enough the person to go, "Oh my God, that's who I am." And you can't undo that, you see. It may not be fully embodied right away, but you can't undo a glimpse. Right? Introduce a client to who they really are, they can't unsee it again. They may not be completely living it or embodying it, but they can't be actually unseen. Right? All good? Doing all right there, Diane? Okay. So awakening then, it means that at least there's a moment, right? A moment when you recognize what's true outside of conceptual thinking. And there's, you could say, an inward dimension to that glimpse and an outward dimension also. The inward dimension means that you recognize who you truly are when you're not defining yourself in thought. And who are you truly when you're not defining yourself in thought? What remains when you let go of all the thoughts about who you thought you were in concept? What's left over?
Presence.
Okay, you could call it presence. What would be other words for it? Consciousness, awareness, what?
Awakeness.
Awakeness, interesting word. You could say love, you could say fullness, emptiness, okay, but not a guy called Joe, anyway. And then what is revealed to be true about life when it's not filtered through conceptual thinking?
It's vibrant.
Okay? It's all connected. You could also say nothing is lacking and nothing is in excess. You realise, oh, there's nothing missing, but there's also nothing here which shouldn't be here. You're actually living in a perfect world. It was only seen to be imperfect because of the habit of thinking. Okay, so a moment of awakening means that we glimpse who we are and what life is long enough that the truth is seen. Once it's seen, it can't exactly be unseen. Embodied awakening means that you are now able to act and to respond from this presence. Okay? It means that you can be a parent from presence rather than from conceptual thinking. Okay? Okay? It means you can be a leader from the capacity to just respond to what's here instead of acting from an agenda. That's what embodied awakening means. Now this means, this is where we introduce awakening coaching, this means in order to live from this kind of presence, it means to take a stand against a mountain of habits. Mountain of habits. Because for all of us, the way that we've learned to be in relationship, as parents, in business, in every way, it's all based upon these contractions which define a limited person. See? Right? For somebody it might be I'm not good enough, so that the whole relationship to reality has come to be defined in terms of I'm not good enough. And they attempt to prove that's not true. See? Okay, that's what we're going to get into with radical releasing. We've developed a complex set of habits, all based in resistance. Making sense? Yeah? Help me out here. Sound enthusiastic.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Good. So that's why you can't really do this alone. That's what you were saying. In a way it's simple, in a way it's not simple. It's simple because the truth can be seen very easily. In a moment you can see, I don't really exist. There's just this presence and there's just life. All simple. To live from there means you're going to have to deal with all of the habits that have arisen. And the habits run very, very deep. You see, it's like a train track. You know, it's been going down that way so long. To try and steer it in another direction requires you need help, and that's the purpose of awakening coaching.